Let's see if I can debunk 4 myths about Trump's EO purporting to end birthright citizenship in 4 minutes. I'm going to speak really quickly. Number 1, can the president overturn a constitutional protection through an EO, an executive order? The answer is no. It's a constitution for a reason. The Constitution can only be overturned in one way, which is by constitutional amendment. And the other way that a constitutional provision can be changed is if the Supreme Court changes its mind about how it interprets a provision. But the president cannot, by executive order, simply overturn a clear provision of the Constitution. And of course, birthright citizenship is the first line of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state in which they reside. Myth number 2, that language, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, doesn't that include the children of migrants or those who are undocumented? Aren't they not subject to the United States? Yes, they are subject to the laws of the United States. If you are a migrant or a child of a migrant or immigrant and you commit a crime, you are going to be arrested and you are going to be prosecuted because you're subject to the laws of this country. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof has always been understood to mean diplomats and their children, because they, of course, are subject to whatever is the foreign country that has sent them. That's why we give them diplomatic immunity, because they are not subject to the laws of the United States. The Supreme Court interpreted that over 100 years ago, and the only question is whether this Supreme Court would be willing to take another look. And that's the third myth. People say Trump wouldn't do this. He wouldn't file an EO that was blatantly unconstitutional. Well, remember I said the Supreme Court can, of course, overturn its earlier decisions. It can always review its decisions from a prior period and review language in the Constitution and decide it means something different. And this majority Supreme Court has been on a tear doing just that, overturning Roe versus Wade, overturning affirmative action. And so I think that Trump thinks he likes his chances before the majority of this Supreme Court. Most people say even this Supreme Court wouldn't go that far, but we've said that before. The final myth is people who think this has nothing to do with them. You think your parents are not immigrants, you're not a migrant, your family didn't come across the southern border, and so you think this has nothing to do with you. Every time a provision of the 14th Amendment is weakened or unraveled, it weakens the rights and the protections of each one of us, and it weakens our democracy. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution is the central document, the template, the blueprint for the new America that was founded after the Civil War, our refounding. And it comprises the provisions and the concepts that constitute our national identity since the Civil War. The protections in it extend not just to Black people, but to everyone. Goodness, corporations have had a field day using the protections of the 14th Amendment, CEG, Hobby Lobby, and Citizens United. The 14th Amendment is one of the most important provisions of our Constitution, to my mind, the most important provision. And so when you see this attempt, this power grab, this effort to try and gut a provision of the 14th Amendment, it has something to do with you. This case is going to move up to the Supreme Court. There are great lawyers, 28 attorney generals and immigrant rights groups and civil rights groups already have filed suit. A federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order stopping the EO from going forward. So there's really nothing for you to do at this moment except pay attention. Don't think this has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with every one of us. So as this case moves up through the system, pay attention. Please. Let's see if I can debunk 4 myths